Welcome back. The 1400 years of Islamic history are filled with marvels of science, culture, and civilization. But today, most people, Muslims included, know very little about Islamic history. Why is that, and what can be done to change it? What are the benefits of learning about Islamic history? Joining me is Dr. Wajid Akhtar. Dr. Wajid is a medical professional based in the UK, but his passion is Islamic history. He lectures on Islamic history and contributes articles to MuslimMatters.org. Dr. Wajid, welcome to the show.
Okay.
So I want to start off a little bit again talking about your biography. So you're a doctor by profession, but your passion lies in Islamic history. How did that happen? What's the story there?
I mean, Islamic history was something that's always fascinated me. What kid doesn't like stories, right? And to me, the best stories were the ones that were real. That I know that weren't just made up by someone, because I could have made something better up myself. And then the best stories out of the ones that were real were the ones that related to something that I could relate to, which was Islamic history.
Can you share an example of one childhood story that sort of...
Well, I'll share an example, and I think this is something that kind of exemplifies why I think Islamic history is so important. So in Medina, when you go to Medina, the mosque, the biggest mosque in Medina, the Prophet's mosque, peace be upon him, there's a section where you go to his tomb and you pay your respects. And then once you're finished, you move across, because it's like a huge tidal wave of humanity doing the same thing at the same time. So I was quite young at the time when we used to live out there in Saudi. I paid my respects and moved on, and just standing there, my brain was empty, as it usually is probably most of the time, not thinking of anything, waiting for the rest of my family to come across.
And you were young at this age?
I must have been like 7. And my father came across, and he said, "You know that spot you're standing on?" I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, that spot is where the Archangel Gabriel stood on to deliver the last message from God to human being, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him." So I took a step away from that spot, and I was like, wow. Suddenly that bit of carpet was no longer just carpet. Suddenly this wasn't just a place, he wasn't just a person. This made it all real. And when history comes alive like that, it inspires you, it makes you, just opens up your mind to a whole world that you didn't know existed. And I wanted to hold on to that as much as I could.
So how did you hold on to it? Because you are a doctor, and you did go to med school, obviously, because you do that to become a doctor. But how did you carry on with that?
That's just my job. I mean, that's what I do to earn money. But history is what you enjoy. I mean, I'm not saying I don't enjoy my job. I hope my patients aren't watching. I love my job. The history is just something that you kind of look for. If you're being someone who's interested in Islamic history, you had to be part archaeologist. You had to be part Indiana Jones. You had to go looking for it in random books here and there.
Are you part archaeologist?
I think I want to be. I've always wanted to be Indiana Jones as well.
Okay.
So yeah, you have to go looking for it wherever you are. You find it, a book here, a piece of paper there, a scrap of metal over there, and you build it up because it's just not available. So
you contribute articles, as I heard, to Muslim Matters, and you also lecture. So what is your area of focus when it comes to Islamic history? Because a lot of people, when they focus in a big area, they have sort of a particular, honed in area that they focus on. What's your area of focus when you lecture or write articles?
My main area of focus is not the traditional Islamic history.
What do you mean by that?
So traditional Islamic history has always been the poor cousin of Islamic sciences, because Islamic sciences is so rigorous when it comes to the study of the Quran, the study of the sayings of the Prophet, that history is such a poor cousin that it's almost neglected, which is I feel is so unfair, because history is what inspires people to take the fundamentals seriously. And we find that in the Quran itself. In the Quran, Allah keeps on giving us, if it was just a set of rules, do this, don't do that, the 10 commandments, but in 600 pages, it would be very difficult to read and very difficult to remember. But Allah keeps on telling us stories, the stories of Pharaoh, the stories of different prophets, the story of the people who went before, because it's through the stories that we learn. Human beings are emotional beings. We make connections through stories. You might tell me 100 things, but once you tell me a story, then it makes it real. It's the same in medicine. I've learned, I read about Friedreich's ataxia. It's like a rare disease 1,000,000 times. I still didn't get it. But after I met the first patient with it, I'll never forget it, because it makes it real in my mind. And now I know everything there is to know about that rare, wonderful disease.
So then, do you, when you write and when you lecture, is the focus, I guess, from what you're saying, the spin-off is really focusing about stories that you find in the Quran and relating it to the audience, or?
No, just stories. Anything that can inspire. Because, again, traditional Islamic history focuses on battles. Even the life of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and literally anything up till now, it's just, it seems like the history of Islam is like one battle, one glorious victory after glorious victory, and then the last 150 years glorious defeat after
and
glorious
all
defeat.
factual, right?
And all very factual. You know, there were 1,000 spears, 250 camels, 30 shields, 20 people died, 10 people got wounded.
And then they won, case closed.
They won or they lost, and that doesn't inspire anyone. What people want to know is the story behind the story. That's what people want to know, and that's what inspires them.
So why do you think it's such a loss? Because you mentioned that, you know, it's the poor cousin. Why do you find that is? Why is there not as much interest as you would have liked?
It's not. Ask any Muslim or even non-Muslims. Islamic history is incredibly, the way it's taught, the book's incredibly dry, and actively making an effort to make it as boring as humanly possible. And they turn world-changing events, amazing individuals, into characters who are either brilliant generals or failed warriors or whatever. And I think that is the real reason, because we don't tap into our rich culture and our rich history. And there's 101 sayings, but people cut off from their history don't have a future. And we're very much like that. We're repeating the mistakes that we did in generations gone past, and we're not looking for inspiration from them because we're not aware.
So given that that's your passion and interest, and you're on television, I'm going to put you a little bit more on the spot. Okay. Can you share one story with our viewers that you think might be worthwhile sharing? Doesn't have to be long, maybe, you know, a quick snippet.
There are many stories, but one I think that I hopefully will try to get across the point I'm making is the story of two of the Prophet's, peace be upon him, closest friends, Abu Bakr and Umar. Now these two have a legendary status amongst Muslims, but we don't really know much about their inner stories or what they were like, what made them tick. And one story really kind of brought home their humanity to me. Abu Bakr and Umar were in constant competition with each other and in doing good stuff, and to do good deeds. But Abu Bakr would always be winning, always. And Umar would always find himself just a step behind. Years later, after the Prophet passed away, Abu Bakr became caliph. A few years after that, Abu Bakr was on his deathbed, and he called Umar to him. Now this was for a handover of power, because Umar was going to be the next caliph. And this happens when one president is leaving office and another one is taking over, or prime minister. You know, there are some things that one head of state will say to another head of state. Only. Nobody else is in the room, no reporters, nobody. You know, secrets like, you know, this is the code to where all the money is kept, this is where the aliens are, you know, hidden, wherever. So Abu Bakr told Umar all these secrets, and one of the secrets he told him was that there's an elderly lady, she's blind, and she lives in a cave outside Medina. And when I finish my job, every evening I go and I feed her. So when I die, can you make sure that you go and feed her as well when you take over?
And this is a stranger, like not related to...
No, this is just an elderly lady who for some reason is living out in a cave by herself, and she's blind. And that day, Abu Bakr passed away, and Umar became the new caliph. He did his job, and in the evening, he went out to the cave, as he promised. He went into the cave quietly. He didn't make a sound. He took the food and he put it into the old lady's mouth. As soon as he did that, the old lady spat the food out, and she goes, Abu Bakr's dead? And she was crying. Umar was astonished. He goes, how did you know? I didn't say a word. You're blind, and I haven't said a word since I got in here. For all you know, I'm Abu Bakr. And she said, no, Abu Bakr knew that I was old and I was blind and my teeth are weak. So he would chew the food first, then put it in my mouth. And Umar started crying as well, saying, even in death you beat me, Abu Bakr. And it's these kind of little stories, these little snippets of our history that, to me, that's more precious than the battles they won, because that makes them relatable on a human level. And that's something I could aspire to, because I don't think I'm about to go into battle any day, I hope. Any day now.
And that also tells you about people's character, right? Because we have poor people in the community, and just shows, you know, the importance of the challenges that we face and how we can help in one little way.
Yeah, it inspires you, right? You can't help but be moved by that story. So yeah, absolutely. It tells you it tells you about how they were, and it gives you something to aim for.
Okay, I think we have 1 minute left, so I just want to really quickly ask, if people are interested in learning more about Islamic history, is there somewhere you would direct them to? Is there one particular book?
There isn't one particular book, I'll be completely honest. I might be a bit harsh, but I don't think there's one particular resource that you can go to and say, right, this is it. Great resource for Islamic history. There are a few that are good, that are out there. Obviously MuslimMatters.com, because I write for them, I like to plug them. But there's also Lost Islamic History, they're very good. But generally, if you're looking for Islamic history, my one bit of advice is develop a love and a passion for it. If you develop a passion for it, if you're interested in it, then the signs are everywhere. They're bits of history. They're just littered about the whole world, in every library, in every bookshop. They're just waiting for you to pick them up, story by story, and build it up yourself.
That was very fascinating and inspiring. Thank you, Wajid.
You're welcome.
We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.